Hey y'all, it's Kira from Oak Remnant. It's almost 8 o'clock in the morning. I have somewhere to go soon, and right now I'm in my morning's best pajamas, so y'all are not gonna see my outfit. But anyway, I want to take the time to take y'all along this corn harvest and talk y'all through what I'm doing and how I know it's time to harvest it. It has been above 90 degrees for the past 2 weeks, and I don't want the corn to just waste away in this blazing hot sun because it is blazing and it's just the morning time. So I'm gonna take y'all along with me and show y'all how I'm harvesting the corn. So here's some of the corn already. This variety is Peaches and Cream, and as you can see, a lot of the silks have turned brown. This is one of the key signs that you want to look for when you're about to harvest your corn. Have the silks turned brown, or are they still a light yellow color? If they are brown, and that means that they have started to dry out, and probably a sign that they're almost or are ready to harvest. Another sign that you want to look for is if the kernels have plumped up. This cob I've opened already a few weeks ago because I wasn't sure if it was ready or not, if they got pollinated, and I was a little anxious. So I did open it up, and the top actually looked like this. Sorry if it's a little blurry, but the top and the bottom actually looked like they weren't pollinated, but after a few days they started to plump up. So you want to look for signs of plumpness. If it's plumpy, nice and plumpy, and what you can do is open it like I did, just tear it open slightly and see if the kernels have formed and have plumped up. Now, another way to tell if your corn is ready to harvest is if you push one of your nails through a corn kernel, and if the liquid that comes out is a milky white color, then it's ready to harvest. But if the liquid that comes out is clear, then it needs a few more days to ripen on the stalk. To give a little more clarification on what to look for when you are testing out your corn kernels, I'm referring to the article, How Do You Know When to Harvest Sweet Corn by Chris McLaughlin from finegardening.com. Chris says that if the liquid that comes out is very clear and watery, they're not ripe yet, so let them ripen on the stalk a little longer. If you can see through the liquid and yet it looks milky, then the corn is perfect for picking. And lastly, if the liquid is completely opaque, meaning that you cannot see through it, is super milky, then you've waited too long. So these are 3 characteristics to look for when you're testing out your corn kernels before harvesting. Now, the third way that you can tell that your corn is ready to harvest is if the corn cob is pushing away from the stalk itself. When the cobs are forming on the stalk, they are forming very close to the stalk or attached to the stalk, and as they mature, they push away from the stalk. So if your corn is pushed away, it has brown, dried silks, and it has a milky, white, cloudy color to the kernels, then it's time to harvest. So this one is definitely ready for harvest. I'm gonna go ahead and pull it off. Came off very easy. This corn I'm going to test out. So I'm gonna open it up like this, using one hand, so it's a little harder. Okay. It has been pollinated. Has a milky color to the kernels. So this one is ready as well. Now this cob wasn't pollinated all the way. Each silk, these are the silks, and each silk corresponds to one kernel on the cob. If your pollen doesn't hit each of the silks, then you'll have some of the kernels that look like this, which are white and not plumpy. And that means that they were not pollinated. But the rest of these kernels look to be pollinated for the most part. And it is also ready. It has a milky color. So I'm gonna pull this too. Now this cob is a really good cob. It's dry, it's pushed away from the stalk. And when I opened up the husk, seems like most of, not all of these kernels are plumped up. Squeezing the kernel, it came with a nice milky color to it. And I'm gonna squeeze another one. Has a milky white color. So this was a really good cob. I was very afraid that a lot of these cobs did not get pollinated by the tassels at the top, and these are the tassels. So these tassels hold the pollen that pollinates the corn silks. I wasn't sure if the tassels pollinated all these corn silks. Some of the corn kernels did not get pollinated on the cobs, but most of them did on the corn cobs that I've harvested so far. And I'm really glad that they pollinated because I was not sure. And if you watched our garden tour, our mini garden tour with the corn so far, then you know that we had a little calamity with the corn falling over in the wind. It was very windy and the corn took a bad hit. Here's the corn harvest for today. 25 ears of corn, and there are still some ears of corn left to ripen on the stalks. I wanted to point out that after you harvest your corn, the sugars convert into starches. Starchy corn is not a good flavor. It also has a gummy texture or consistency. So if you're not one for starchy corn, if your recipe doesn't call for starchy corn, then I would suggest putting them in the fridge or freezing them or preserving them in some way if you're not immediately using your corn, so that it slows down that conversion process. Also, if your corn is sitting in high temperatures, that can speed up that conversion process, making your corn starchy more quickly. So if you're not immediately using it, put it in the fridge or preserve them in some way. All right, so most of the corn is harvested. There are still some corn cobs left that need to ripen before I harvest them. Once they are ready, I'm gonna push over the stalks and make room for another crop of corn, a succession crop of corn before this season is over with. We still got about 3 more months left of hot weather, so plenty enough time for more corn to get growing. And we're gonna try container growing corn because a lot of people seem to have success with growing corn in containers. So I'm gonna see how the corn does in ground versus containers and if there's any difference with that. But y'all, I am so happy that most of the corn, pretty much all the corn actually has some good kernels on them, because y'all, I was so concerned. I got it like, when the wind blew over the corn, I wasn't sure if it was it for them or not, because and the corn tassels seem to grow very quickly in comparison to last year. So I wasn't sure, and last year I was able to hand pollinate them, but this year they grew so quickly, and the wind and the rain was out here kind of prevented me from hand pollinating the corn. And when I was able to hand pollinate, most of the pollen was already gone. So it was really just letting nature take control for this year's crop of corn, and it seemed to work out. I did plant them pretty close together. They probably could have been planted a few inches closely. When I look at the cornfields in my town, that corn is like 2 inches apart. So could probably plant them closer and get a better pollination with that. We'll have to see for that. But we got some good corn cobs, and I hope this was helpful for y'all. So again, to recap, you want to look for the drying and browning of the corn silks. That's one sign. If the corn kernels have a milky white color to them when you push your fingernail through it, that's another sign. If it's clear and clear liquid, then you may want to let them ripen on the cob or on the stalk for a few days longer. Also, if the corn cob has pushed away from the stalk, that's also another sign that you want to look for. Now, some people go by the days of maturity that's on their corn seed packet, but I think it's best to just observe the corn itself and see what the corn is telling us, if it's ready to harvest or not. So those are some of the signs that you want to look for, and we hope this is helpful. Once this is done, these corn stalks are getting pushed over and thrown in the compost, y'all, okay? So I hope this was helpful again, y'all. Thank y'all for watching. I got somewhere to go, but stay tuned, and remember, plant to live. They gonna go in compost, y'all.